Hey, Nathan here from PH Studios, and welcome back to another tower defense tutorial covering the game engine itself. Last tutorial, we discussed the monster class. We got that ready to go and everything before the part 2, which we will fill in the method content, the method body. So now we're going on to the tower class. So if we open up the tower folder and the tower class itself, then we can start coding our logic here. Alright, so let's go ahead and copy the using statements from the monster class and then paste them in the tower class. And then let's go ahead and get started. We will have the same format. We will have a reader and a writer. So let's go ahead and create some regions for those. And then region reader. Alright, so in between those, we will start coding our properties, our fields, and our methods. Okay, so a tower will have basically a name, description, and of course the thumbnail that we want it to have, and then textures, so a texture asset and then texture. So just like the last couple of classes, we are going to have those as serializer, except for the thumbnail assets. We are going to have those serializer, and then the actual thumbnail is going to be ignored because it's going to be the texture 2D. So just like we did with the bullet class and monster class, let's go ahead and do that. We will serialize the name, and that's going to be a public string name, get and private set. And then we have the description. It's going to be get and private set again. Alright, thumbnail asset, that's going to be the string, and it will be serialized. It's going to be get and private set. Alright, now we will ignore the thumbnail, because that's going to be the texture. So public texture 2D thumbnail get and private set. Now we have the texture, the actual texture, so we will serialize the texture asset. Public string texture asset get and private set. And just like the thumbnail asset, we will ignore the texture, which will be a public texture 2D texture. Private set. Alright, so those are all the information that we have, our name, description, thumbnail asset, and texture. Now we need to know every tower will have its radius. Whenever you click a tower, it displays that radius, just a circle, textures. So every tower will have a radius texture, and that will be what we will use to display the attack radius. So we will serialize the public string radius texture asset get and private set, and just like above, we will ignore the actual texture. Public texture 2D radius texture. get and private set. Alright, so our gameplay object class has an access to a vector2 for the origin. Now, this is not going to be a gameplay object derivative. It'll take some features from the gameplay object, but it will not be a actual derivative of gameplay object. So we need to bring in a few of those features, and one of those will be the origin, and we will ignore that. So that will be a vector2, and it will be the origin. Get and private set. Alright, so now for the actual tower statistics itself. We need how much the tower costs, how much it costs to upgrade, the overall cost you spent on it, the level, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and build those in the class here. So first up is the cost. We will want to serialize it so you can create new towers and just say it's going to cost this. Get private set. Upgrade cost. We will ignore this and we'll actually do some math to determine the upgrade cost. And this is hard-coded for now. We will, in a future game update, we will have it to where we can provide a not static way to do the upgrade cost. But for now, let's just do public int upgrade cost, and we'll get opening curly bracket there and return two opening parentheses. Level, which we have not made yet, so just press escape so it doesn't autocomplete. Level plus 1, closing parentheses, times the cost of the tower, closing parentheses, divided by 2, semicolon, and closing curly brackets. So we do an integer divide, so it does return an int, so we're all ready to go on this. It'll take the level of the tower plus 1 times the cost and divided by 2. So if the tower is 50 and the current level is 0, it'll do 0 plus 1 times 50, which is 50 divided by 2 is 25. It costs 25 to upgrade the tower. Alright, so next we will ignore the total cost. This is how much you put into this tower. Public int total cost. Get private set. Alright, now for the actual level. As I mentioned, this is not aware of the level. So let's go ahead and actually code in the level. Now, what we've been doing in the past with properties, like this one. Now, this one's a little bit different, but for these type of properties, this is the new C# feature where we do not have to have another field to represent the total cost. It'll automatically generate this when we compile it. For the level, we're going to do it the old C# way, and we need to actually build the actual field for the property. And why we're going to do this, you will notice that in the property we are about to make. So make the int level field, it will be private, and we will serialize its property here. Public int level, capital L. Remember, the properties usually start with uppercase, and fields or variables usually start with lowercase. If you want to do it the other way around, that's your coding style. It's completely up to you, but that's the way I do things. Get. So we get and return the field, not the property. I mentioned this in a previous tutorial that you need to make sure to go to the field and not the property, because then you would create an infinite loop. Alright, so we just return the level. Now when we set, we need to perform logic, and this is why we need to have the actual property. and field separate. So set if value, if whatever we're setting it to is less than the max level, which we have not created yet, but go ahead and press escape so it does not autocomplete. If the value is less than max level, and let's close parentheses, opening curly bracket, and then close curly bracket. If the value is less than the maximum level, that means we can level up. Level is equal to value. Then we need to perform logic to level up. So we have a level up method that we will create later. So opening, closing parentheses, and semicolon. So whenever we want to perform logic like this with the property, you want to keep the field, and you want to do it the old C# way, and actually create the field and the property to go along with it. Alright, so that property is done. Now let's go ahead and serialize the next property, which will be the maximum level the tower can achieve. Public int max level. Get and private set. Alright, so now we need to actually have statistics. How much damage does this tower do? What is its attack rate, its fire rate? What is its radius? We have the radius texture, but now we need to know the actual radius it has. All this will be done with the actual tower statistics class we created in the first tutorial. So now we just need to represent that in a field and property. And we'll do the same thing we did with the levels. So we need to have the field and then the property. So it's going to be a tower statistics initial statistics. Why do we have initial statistics? That will be how it starts. When we first start the game, this is the tower's initial statistics. We will be doing this for when we save the game, we will save the level. The tower is at level 4. It starts at level 0. It is now at level 4. It started with initial statistics. We have upgrade statistics. So that way we can be aware of how we can upgrade the tower when we load a saved game. Alright, now we will serialize the property for the initial statistics. Public tower statistics initial statistics. Get return initial statistics, the field, not the property. Set opening, closing parentheses. Initial statistics is equal to value, and then we will level up. Opening, closing parentheses, and semicolon. Now remember, that method is still not generated yet, so it will complain about that until we get down there. Okay, a few more things we need to do for the tower. Every tower will be aware of the map it is representing, and this will be ignored in the actual XML because we will not know what that tower will be used in what map. So it will be ignored, and we'll do this in the map class and the user interface. When we buy a new tower, it will set this map object. So we will get and private set. Alright, so now let's actually code in the level up method. It's going to be private void level up. Opening, closing parentheses, and opening, closing curly brackets. Alright, so remember, all of our methods will be waiting until after we finish all the structure on all the classes. We will go and do part 2 of every video and fill in these methods. Alright, so let's go ahead and ignore the next property, which will be the current statistics that the tower has, its current attack power, its current attack radius. So it will be a tower statistics and current statistics. And we will get and private set. Alright, now just with the initial statistics, just like what we did with that, we need to have an upgrade statistics. So it'll be a tower statistics, or I'm sorry, it'll be upgrade statistics. And let's call it upgrade statistics. Again, we generate the field and then the property, just like we did with the initial statistics. We will serialize the upgrade statistics. Public upgrade statistics, upgrade statistics. Get return upgrade statistics. Remember the field. Set upgrade statistics is equal to value, and then let's level up. Alright, now a few more properties, a few more, some of it will be graphics data, and most of it will be, we need to be aware of the bullets, what bullets it creates. So that'll be the next couple of properties here. Let's go ahead and serialize that. Content serializer. We'll have a private string bullet asset. Get and we don't need private set. Get and set. So the whole property is private, so we don't need private set. Alright, so now we will ignore the next one. And we're going to call this public bullet base. Remember, we created the clone method in the previous tutorial where we covered the bullet class. We created the clone method for such purposes where we have a single bullet object in our tower, a bullet base. Every time we want to fire a new bullet, it will clone the bullet base, and that will be the bullet we fire. Get and private set. Alright, so now we need to be aware of how many bullets we have fired. We need to know if we have 5 bullets that belong to our tower, it needs to be aware of every single one of those bullets. So that will be done by a list. Content serializer we will ignore because we do not know what bullets we will create whenever we create the actual XML file. So that's why we need to ignore the list of bullets. We'll call it bullets. Opening, closing curly brackets, get and private set. Alright, so more tower data. We have a way to determine how much we want the tower to cost. Now we need to determine how much we want it to sell for. And the way we will be doing this for now is we'll just have a sell scalar. Public float sell scalar. So if we say 50%, the tower will sell 50% of the total cost. Remember, the total cost is how much money we spent on the tower overall. So if the tower has ended up costing $1,000 and the sales scalar is 50%, we will receive $500 back when we sell. So we will private set. Alright, so some physics data. It's location on the map. It's more graphics data. It's bounding rectangle. It's vector 2 position along with the map location. Its rotation, its scale, and all that stuff will be next. So this is a pretty big class, lots of properties, but we'll slowly get there. Alright, so first things up is the map location. It will be a point. And let's just call it map location. Alright, now we will ignore the property for the map location. Public point map location. Get return map location, semicolon. Set map location is equal to value, and then we will call set location, opening closing parentheses, and semicolon. Alright, let's go ahead and ignore the bounding rectangle because, again, we don't know how it will work when we create the XML file. Get and private set. Position, we will ignore the position. Position in this case is the vector 2. Get and private set. Alright, so now we have a rotation value that will be ignored. Rotation will be determined based on the target monster that it's targeting, and that will determine its rotation. Public float rotation. Private set. Let's go ahead and ignore the is initialized property, and this will determine if we can actually select the tower and actually work with the tower. Maybe in a future update we will have an actual build time for the tower and actually have it to where it is a animated series of textures that we have an actual looking like it's being built. And at that point it will not be initialized until the build time is complete, and this just saves it up for future updates if we ever want to do that. Let's ignore the next property. Along with the is initialized, we need to know if it is placed on the map. If it is placed on the map, we can actively select it. It'll actively display its attack radius, and that is how we determine if the tower is selectable or not. Okay, a few more things we need to. Now, this tower, a tower, can be clicked. So we need to bring in some functionality from the clickable gameplay objects class. So let's go ahead and ignore the clicked status. So public object click state, and go ahead and press escape so it doesn't autocomplete. Left state. Get and private set. And let's go ahead and go into the clickable gameplay object and copy the tower's namespace and paste it in the clickable gameplay object class. So that way the tower is aware of the object clicked state. Alright, now back in the tower class, we need to be aware of the active mouse that clicked the tower. But that will be ignored in the XML. So public mouse. Again, we'll need to copy the namespace to the mouse class. So the tower is aware of the mouse. And then let's call it active mouse. Get and protected set. So remember, change the namespaces of the mouse, gameplay object, and clickable gameplay object classes to the same as what you have named your project, what the namespace is here. So that way, everything is aware of the mouse. Alright, more event-driven logic. When you click the tower, whatever is signed up for that event needs to be aware of it. So it will be a public event handler, left click event. Okay. Content serializer ignore. We will need to have access to the monster it is currently targeting. Monster target. Get and private set. Now for future reference, let's go ahead and ignore this, and we will just keep aware of the time it has been placed. We will not actually use this in this current version of the game, but we probably will in version 1.5. Now, whenever we have any sort of time, we need to have a float timer field. Alright, so a lot of properties in this class. I do apologize. It is a pretty big class in terms of property-wise. But that's pretty much it. Now we'll go on to the generating the methods. And we will not generate the method bodies, not the actual code in the methods, just the header. So first things up, we need to work on two initialize method. Public void initialize. We need to pass it a map, and then a content manager. If I can type here, content manager and content manager. Opening, closing curly brackets, and then one more initialize method when we just want to pass in the map. Public void map and map. Alright, a private void set location. Public void place tower. Public void upgrade. Public void update. It needs a game time. Mouse. Active mouse. Remember, we take the basic functionality from the clickable gameplay object and bring it into the tower. If we already have a target, we need to do a private void update target. And of course, any update we need to pass in the game time. So this will update the target. It'll update the rotation of our tower. It'll make sure that the target is still within the attack radius. And then if it is, and if we have a attack time, and everything's working correctly, and everything is within a certain condition, it will fire a bullet at the monster. Alright, private monster. Now, if we do not have a target, we need to find a target. And it returns a monster, so just do return null here. Just so it doesn't complain about that. Alright, so one of the classes and objects that will be aware of when a monster dies is, of course, the tower. The tower is targeting the monster dies, so we need to perform logic to reset the tower back to its initial state. It doesn't have a target, and all that stuff. So let's do void monsters. So just do m_die event. Object sender. What called this event? Event args. E. Closing parentheses and opening and closing curly bracket. Private void update mouse. Game time, and mouse, active mouse. Opening, closing curly brackets. Now the draw methods. We need to have public void draw game time, and sprite batch, opening closing curly brackets, and then public void draw radius game time, sprite batch, oh, closing parentheses, opening closing curly brackets. Okay, now after the reader region, let's do internal tower clone. Then tower T is equal to new tower and return T. Now I'm going to actually bring in the logic from the completed engine, and I'll paste it in there. Alright, so let's run a quick check on the bullet base. So I just need to uppercase the B there, and that's good to go. Alright, so basically just copy every property that we created. Copy the name, description, thumbnail asset, thumbnail, texture asset, texture, radius texture asset, radius texture, cost, level, max level, initial statistics, current statistics, upgrade statistics, bullet asset, bullet base, cell scalar, map location, and the origin. We do all that and then we return T. Okay, so for the actual writers and readers, I'm going to go ahead and copy the logic from the completed engine. So it's trying to speed up the tutorials a little bit. I'm just going to copy the writers and readers. You already saw me do that a couple times. And then I'll go over to the code after I copy it, so I know you understand it. There's really not much more to cover on the writers and readers. Just make sure to write and read the same way we create the methods, and you will be good to go. Okay, so let's talk about the writer first. Remember, when we create the public class tower writer, and it's a derivative of content type writer, and it's a type of tower, it generates a write method and a get runtime reader method. Remember, the get runtime readers, we just take a very basic approach by return the type of the actual reader we will be using, and then dot assembly qualified name. That's just a very basic approach to do the runtime reader. Now for the write method, remember we want to write the same way we read the data. Now we use .write for nearly everything except for the initial statistics and upgrade statistics. We will be doing write object. Okay, now remember when we have textures or anything like that, we just want to write and read the assets. We don't want to actually write and read the texture itself. Alright, now let's go to the reader. We basically do the same thing as in the previous videos. Name, it's a string, so we'd call .read string. Everything's pretty self-explanatory. Name. Now, when we read the data, we want to set the name of the tower. So, the tower is named a certain way in the XML. Now, something I added late in the development process is a way for you to see the level in the tower. So we change the name of the tower, add a space, and add the level. So that's why you see Basic Tower 1, Basic Tower 2, because it adds the level to the tower. Alright. Max level, yeah, everything's read int up here. For the initial statistics, we call input.readObject. It needs to know what type of object. It's a tower statistics, and that's basically all we need to do there. Current statistics, we set it as initial statistics. Upgrade statistics, we do the same thing. .readObject, upgrade statistics. Bullet asset, we read in the string, and then we actually set the bullet base by doing .load bullet. And the path it needs to go to is towers, bullets, and then opening and closing curly bracket and a 0 in between those, where we pass the bullet asset. And then we clone the bullet before it's set as a bullet base. Remember, cell scalar is a float value. Remember, whenever we read or write, it needs to be referred to as single. Obviously, when we write, we just call it .write. .write value.cell scalar. So when we read, we need to say read single. And then we just set the map location to -1, -1, because then it will automatically update when we say set location, and we call the method. Alright, so this was a pretty big class that we had to create. So I hope you got it all sorted out. Next tutorial, we will cover the wave. And this is actually tower part 1. So we'll go into the wave class and do that. And these are pretty long tutorials, so that'll probably be it for this weekend. Actually, wave is not that bad. So after wave, let's go ahead and work on these statistics. So those are pretty small. So let's go ahead and next tutorial will be wave, and then I'll do 2 more tutorials after that. So we'll have an extra tutorial for this weekend. Let's go ahead and do the tower statistics and upgrade statistics. So that'll be it for this weekend, and I hope you will enjoy those tutorials. And I hope these aren't that boring. There's a lot of stuff to do, and hopefully I'm saying things and getting you to understand things correctly. And as we go along, you will know how to code writers and readers and all that stuff, so we'll not have to keep on explaining things, and it'll go much faster. So, I hope to see you next time for the wave class.